Whether you're Christian, Muslim, Hindu, atheist, whatever you may be, you're about to learn something very, very interesting about Allah. You're about to learn what it means for Allah to be the concealer. Allah is called As-Sittar or As-Sitir, which means the concealer. What is Allah concealing? He's concealing your sins. To see how this works, let's go to Sheikh Assim al-Hakeem. The discussion starts with a man asking a question about his friend who committed adultery.
Muhammad from France says that his friend has committed adultery. He did not fornicate, he's married. So he committed adultery, he cheated on his wife.
Yeah, Sheikh. So my friend went to Las Vegas for a business trip, and while I was there, while my friend was there, he committed adultery with this prostitute who showed up at his hotel room. So this man is worried because his friend committed adultery. And as we're about to see, his friend wants to know how his sin can be cleansed the Islamic way. He wants to know how he can get stoned. And we're not talking about smoking the chronic here.
So he committed adultery, he cheated on his wife. And now he's back with his wife, repenting and wanting to know which place or how can he get the punishment of stoning to death to cleanse his sin.
All right. This man, his friend, lives in a country that doesn't stone adulterers, but he wants to be cleansed of his sin. So what can he do? Sheikh Assim gives two responses. First, this guy can't just get his friends or his imam to stone him to death.
First of all, Akhi, this punishment and the likes cannot be carried out by individuals. It cannot be carried out by the community, the Muslim community, or the head of the Muslim Islamic Center. This prescribed punishment, whether it's beheading, execution, or flogging, or stoning, or chopping off the hands of a thief, can only be executed by the Muslim ruler of the country.
So, you don't have the right to carry out these kinds of punishments on yourself.
So for you, my friend, you don't have the right, or your friend does not have the right to.
Did you catch that? So for you, my friend, you don't have the right. Your friend doesn't have the right.
Your friend does not have the right to ask others to stone him to death. And if he does, then he would be committing suicide. Those who stoned him would be murderers and must be punished according to Islamic law.
Second, if you got away with adultery, then Allah helped you get away with it. So just keep quiet about it.
So what to do, Sheikh? Akhi, Allah, one of his beautiful names is As-Sittir, the one who conceals.
Allah is the concealer of your sins.
Get ready for the only concealer you'll ever need.
He's the concealer of sins. He's the best of concealers. Who's better than Allah at concealing your sins so that no one knows about them? Now, what if Allah conceals a man's sins, but the man feels guilty about what he's done and he wants to confess? What then?
So if Allah concealed your sin, it is a sin for you to go and tell others about it. It's a sin to go to your wife and say, listen, hon, when we were separated, I did this and this and this. Totally haram. Totally sinful. And it's sinful for you to go and expose it to others.
So, if you commit adultery and you get away with it, this means that Allah has concealed your sin. And under no circumstances should you ever confess what you've done. It'll be your little secret with Allah.
So, what's between you and Allah remains between you and Allah. Ask Allah for forgiveness, and Allah would erase your sins.
What's between you and Allah stays between you and Allah.
What's between you and Allah remains between you and Allah.
This guy literally stole the motto of Las Vegas and applied it to his God. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What's between you and Allah stays between you and Allah. If Allah were a city, he would be Las Vegas.
What's between you and Allah remains between you and Allah.
Now, there are a few obvious problems with Islam here. One, if you struggle with sin, confession and accountability are usually very important parts of resisting temptation in the future. When you cover up what you've done and you avoid accountability, you end up living a double life. There's the public you, noble and virtuous, and then there's the private you, a slave to sin. Which one is the real you? You guessed it, the one who does what he does when no one's looking. So Islam is giving horrible advice here.
What's between you and Allah remains between you and Allah.
2, according to Islam, if you don't get caught for your sin, it's because Allah concealed your sin. But the only way for a man to get caught committing adultery, according to Islam, is if there are 4 male witnesses. So Islam makes it almost impossible for a man to get caught committing adultery. This means that Allah has concealed the sins of the vast majority of adulterers who've ever lived. And they should never confess what they've done because Allah is the one who concealed their sins after making it virtually impossible for them to ever get caught.
What's between you and Allah remains between you and Allah.
3, what about other sins? What if you get away with rape or child molestation? If you don't get caught, it means that Allah, the concealer, concealed your sin and that you should never confess what you've done, right?
What's between you and Allah remains between you and Allah.
Actually, in Islam, if you get away with rape and child molestation, you might be Allah's last and greatest prophet, am I right? Finally, since Allah is the one who conceals people's sins, since Allah is the one who helps people get away with sinning, is it just me, or does Allah once again sound an awful lot like Satan? We've seen in other videos that Allah brags about being the best of deceivers. We've seen that Allah wants people to sin and that he threatens to destroy people if they don't sin. And here we find Allah telling people that if they sin, he'll cover up their sin for them so that they never get caught. It's like Satan went into the cave with Muhammad, roughed him up a bit, and claimed to be God in order to create the world's largest false religion. But every now and then, his pride got the better of him, and he just couldn't resist bragging about being Satan.
It just backfired on you. It just backfired on you. This is a part of a religion. There's a reason to it. Yeah?